brutally cold winters, equally hot summers, there are thunderstorms and threatening hurricanes. What I just described to all of you is the future of our planet in our current battle with global warming. Of course, it's a global problem, but how does it scale to some bigger ones? For example, terrorism or poverty? Definitely those are bigger, right? Well, as debatable as this is, the thing is that no matter what we do right now to solve global warming, it won't be resolved within even a matter of decades, all because we won't allow it. But let's take a few steps back to the basics, and see what really is global warming, or another name, climate change. So, in simple terms, in a diagram, it can be explained through this picture right here. What it is essentially is when the sun heats up the earth through solar radiation and sun rays, what happens is the world gets heated and much of the radiation bounces back to space. But due to the emission of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, and mainly carbon dioxide and methane, this radiation bounces back towards the Earth's surface and heats it up from the inside out, creating almost a planetary microwave, if you could say that. And here's some data over the last 100 and 200 years. Especially since our world's been heating up much more since the Industrial Revolution, since the start of the emission of these gases. Over here, if it may not be that clear, it simply says that since 1910 to 2010, our world has heated up on average by at least 1 degree Celsius. I'm sure you think that 1 degree is just a small number, can't affect us. But the truth is that this 1 degree has been the cause for the melting ice caps in the most frozen places on Earth. And it's been the cause for the driest droughts that many countries have and will ever see. But if you thought this was scary, think about the fact that this also causes some of the harshest winters that places will ever witness. And these aren't just any places. Temperate zones, hot zones will face very harsh blizzards and winters. Now take a look at the data, which shows us a prediction for the next 40 years until 2060. It shows that our average global temperature will increase by another degree. It took us 100 years to get to 1 degree increase, and now 40 to get another. This means that everything I just described to you before will be exponentially worse, and there's nothing we can do about it unless we start acting right now. But people are trying to reduce their carbon footprint. It's not impossible, definitely. But to go into this in further detail, we all have to understand some basic terms. Carbon footprint is simply the emission of carbon and carbon dioxide gases for a company, entity, country, person, doesn't matter, but due to some certain activities. Then there's carbon pricing and carbon tax. Carbon pricing is a price put on carbon to inspire and motivate people and companies to get modernized and innovate so that they can reduce the emission of carbon that they give out per year. Carbon tax is simply a tax imposed by the government onto companies per year, because it's mainly the ones that burn fossil fuels that are the ones who are actually causing harm, because many companies don't rely on this as their source of energy. Now further than that, there are two big and main initiatives which have been taken for the sole purpose of reducing carbon emissions around the world, and that is the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Accords. And these two have been very successful, especially carbon tax, which people are expecting to be the most successful initiative that's ever been. And currently, the carbon tax around the world on average is $23. But there's only one catch that relates to all of these policies. None of them actually work, and here's why. The first thing is that renewable resources and abundant renewable energy isn't available to every single company, country, and person in the world, because often they're very hard to harness. Secondly, these policies aren't imbued across the world equally and equally. Let's take India for example. It's the third largest emitter of carbon dioxide in the entire world, even though it has a per capita emission of only 1.7. Our large population is to blame for this, definitely, but our carbon tax is only 400 rupees. That's 4 times less than the global average, which is already completely ineffective. Next, we have carbon pricing leading to carbon leakage, which simply means that companies go from countries with high carbon tax to countries with lower carbon tax so that they can keep their company going and keep their economy rising. And this is the big problem, because even if our country has a high carbon tax, if they go somewhere else and pollute the world there, it doesn't make a difference, does it? Next, we have the problem of carbon pricing escalating prices. This often leads to producers increasing their product prices, and making sure that people have to buy it at a higher price. What this leads to is competitive disadvantages for bigger companies, smaller companies, and in small and simple terms, a crash in the economy if this ever does take place. Lastly, but the most important perhaps, countries and companies which rely on the retail of fossil fuels, such as the entire Middle East, some big names such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, will be completely shut down if we stop using fossil fuels. Just take a moment to think about it. If they stop using fossil fuels and the world stops using fossil fuels and they stop selling it, stop buying it, stop trading it, what's going to happen to them? They have no other source to fuel their economy, literally. But forget all of this. Forget the fact that this doesn't work. Nobody here, not even me, not even you, is inculpable for the fact that we are polluting the air. But let's take a look at some steps on how we can reduce it, because everyone knows we have to. The fact is that we have to get our global average temperature increase below 2 degrees by 2050, and the per capita increase below 2 tons per year. Let's see how we can do this. Let's see how we can make some very smart decisions. Firstly, you can travel less by air and stop the pollution caused by that. Change your eating habits by eating less processed food, buying second-hand instead of new. Public transport is always good, as well as carpooling. Energy efficient appliances are great. Renewable energy is maybe a little expensive, but it's always great for the environment. And planting trees is the old way that we still follow today, and we still should. Now, in my utopian world, all of this, none of these problems are even there. I dream that people used electric cars forever, throughout the future. Renewable energy is the fad and every country is using it. Nobody's economy is crashing and carbon emissions are an all-time low. Even though this may be a really faraway future and one that none of us can even dream of for the next 100 years or so, remember, you control climate change. This is all in your hands. Inspire someone to do something better and do it yourself. And never forget this. Thank you.